I am Shannon, and I'm going to be moderating the panel today. Joining me, we've got two of our incredible sellers on Vico, Pat Yates from Happy Feet Slippers and Michael Faircloth from the Barrington Garage. Last on the end there, but not least, is my esteemed colleague Casey. She is also with Vico. I'm going to run through some things, but we'll leave 5 minutes at the end for questions. So if you guys have specific questions, just hold it till then. We all know the basic opportunity for why we're here. So sellers that operate on 2 or more channels, they have a tendency to generate up to 190% more revenue. But my little screen's not clicking. So there we go.
There you go.
This will help everybody follow along. There we go. So they generate up to 190% more revenue on average. We also know part of those fears of scaling to more than one channel is the chaos that comes operationally once we do. Today, we're going to talk to these merchants about how they've overcome that, how they've expanded, some challenges that they've hit, and then talk through our system that we've created from all the lessons we've learned through our sellers to see how we can overcome that. All right, let's get started. Pat, how did you expand your business, and what were the key first steps that you took for growth?
Yeah, my business is very interesting. We have a seasonal product, Happy Feet Slippers. You can look it up, buyhappyfeet.com. It's a house slipper, tennis shoe design. And I think I went through 2 layers of big growth. One was semi-retail, which specialty retail actually, and the other was online. So really to talk about both of them, I was kind of fortunate to be born into the specialty retail industry, kiosks and malls. And what we did was put our name on the product, and then when they would run it for 2 months, they'd leave, people would come back to the mall, look for it, and then they'd just go online to find it. So I built a funnel organically via a retail set. The second jump for me, once I hit e-commerce big, was doing Shark Tank in 2014 and having Robert Hirschbeck involved. Really took it to the next level in a good way and a bad way, which is interesting because we're going to contrast some of the things that are pitfalls. And what we did is to get a lot of eyes on our brand. I think my whole philosophy was, don't ever turn down any opportunities, whether it was speaking, whether it was consulting, whatever it was, looking at licensing, looking at branding, looking at other channels, and the multi-channel thing became really big. Some of the things that we'll talk about as pitfalls, whether it's systems or growth, we'll talk about a little bit. But I think the main thing with me was I always made myself available for any kind of growth opportunity, no matter what it was. So sometimes they wouldn't work, sometimes they would. Entrepreneurs are famous for, let's jump out of a plane and figure out how to have a parachute when we get down. And I was one that did that to the nth degree. So some of it was great, some of it was bad, but those were the 2 biggest levers that I pulled.
And Michael, how about you? What did those early stages look like for you?
It was different in the sense that selling online really was just sort of a hobby, that was a kind of a side hustle. I have a degree in piano performance, so that was nice. We've never talked about
Very
that.
naturally.
We're not going to talk about it now, as a matter of fact. But
it's actually why you're all here.
But it was a hobby that grew, and my store called the Barrington Garage simply because it started in a garage. That was how creative that was, in a neighborhood called Barrington, of which I am the president of the HOA as well, and that's no fun either. So, but at any rate, there was an emphasis on American-made artisan craft, which I just did sort of have an attraction to as a product type. And, but I was finding in the early days of that some of the artisans that made this stuff, I probably shouldn't say this, they weren't thrilled about being only on Amazon. It just kind of didn't have the vibe they were looking for. And I found that it was going to be helpful to have my own standalone website that gave me a little bit of street cred with those people. That attitude is probably not there much anymore, but that's how it was. So, I expanded to a Shopify store. But because I'm very much a small mom and pop kind of business, I was just really, really struggling with how to keep inventory in sync. And it took a long time to figure that out.
And I think that actually leads us, because I think that mentality is common among a lot of people, is all your eggs in one basket. How do we expand? How do we continue to grow that? Casey, you see a lot of sellers throughout our journey here. What are some patterns you've seen among those who've been successful?
Yeah, no, I've had the opportunity to work with a number of different sellers. My journey at Amazon, I've worked with always teams supporting third-party sellers. So I've love hearing the stories behind sellers. Say the ones that are really successful have just a really, kind of very tuned in to unit economics. So how much it's costing you for storage, for shipping, et cetera. And then when you're scaling to other channels, really having a dialed in process that's not completely different to each channel, but really being able to scale and then making it easier and repeatable. And then really, I'd say the last is being able to iterate on that as you go. So, really testing the marketplaces, understanding each specifically, but having one standardization among your team, and then really iterating on that over time, just continuing to improve processes and have a good pulse on the business.
Absolutely. So that leads us actually into a really great point. Michael, you and I talked a little bit before. When did you realize when your current systems weren't keeping up and you were going to have to make some changes?
It was sellouts. I'd wake up in the morning and see that we sold something overnight and we didn't have it, and I thought I've got to do something about this. But everything that I was looking at was just way more than I needed, both in terms of the cost and the complexity of it. And literally, for a couple years, I was like, I can't find what I'm looking for. And then Vico came along.
And Pat, what was your kind of uh-oh moment when you were like, it's getting a little chaotic, I got to do something about it?
You're talking about overall or systems?
Just in general. No,
Just
overall.
in general. Well, I'll piggyback on what he said. It's interesting. I reflect back, and I'm a big fan of Vico. Shannon will tell you that. I've not only loved it, I've complained to her about it more than she can have anyone do, which is interesting because it's morphed into me building an app, which, man, and we talked to a gentleman in the crowd today about an expiration app that we're helping build that'll tie to Vico. So I really believe in the system, but I think from a system standpoint, many years ago, I was on NetSuite and Channel Advisor, and I was probably spending 50 or 60 grand a year to be able to host the site, run inventory management, do other things, and have multi-channel systems as well as a shipping system. When I found Vico, I thought it was really amazing because it was lean enough to be perfectly good for my business, which was smaller than a lot of businesses, but it was also affordable in a sense. Well, it was free, but in any event.
Very
but
affordable.
It had holes. But the great news is I think sometimes that's great because it makes you rethink your business a little bit and how can this fit and how can I make this work? So I think that part. From an overall business standpoint, I think my biggest uh-oh moment, I've had some weird swings that a lot of people wouldn't go through. You can imagine having 8 million viewers one night watching Shark Tank and hitting your site. It was mind-blowing to watch the traffic levels when it ran through different areas.
That never happened to the Barrington.
It was really cool to watch. But then what happened is so many people were nipping at our heels, like Disney called, DreamWorks called, everyone called. We had NFL. I went and did a Disney license, and we went from 0 to 60 in a Disney license. Literally did 50-some figural styles, which you see on our site, and it was a complete nightmare. And I had no idea how the cash flow would be impacted by something we went that wide on. And I think that it took me going through that to figure out that there were good ways to do things and bad ways to do things. So getting leaner from a system standpoint as well as from a SKU standpoint was huge for me. And the other thing is I'm actually, and it's weird because I keep saying these things, I'm an advisor at Quiet Light, which can sell any of these e-com companies you've ever looked it up, and I'm an advisor selling companies that are e-com, SaaS, content, and that. But when I started looking at financials of other companies like yours that I sell, it was wild to look at how different these systems were and how many different things people did. And I could look at their P&Ls and understand, wait, this was a different way to do this. It was like getting an MBA every day. So what I was able to do was take that information and then pass it along when I'm speaking like this and in other places to be able to try to help people get their businesses leaner that way. So what I did was a combination of cutting expenses, raising revenue, but the biggest decision that I made was to not be all things to all people and have low prices just to turn a lot of revenue. What I wanted to do is have quality gross margin. I don't care about net profit as much, I care about that middle line much more.
Yeah.
So when you focus on that, I think you can reverse engineer your business in a lot of ways. And I think inflation actually helped a lot of companies look at what their expenses were because I can't afford to do certain things. So what can I cut? What can I cut?
Yeah.
And it made people look at how they were operating their businesses. I think it's a combination of all those things, truly.
Oh, I think that's a great point. And excuse me, day 2. Casey, you support a lot of sellers, different complexities to completely dialed in. What is a breaking point that you've seen that has it been typically inventory or fulfillment based, or they reach human capacity? Like, what are some things you've seen across that variety of sellers?
I mean, it's going to depend on the business. Yeah, I mean, it's the intersection of all of them coming together. So, I mean, inventory, not having visibility across different channels. I mean, that's the number one thing that just creates chaos. Burnout can be a thing too. So, have you built processes that you can scale? Are you iterating on them, like I talked about before? And then It's just really being able to have a close pulse on your business. There's not one true breaking point. I'd say it's different for each one, but just really like catching that before you get to that point too. So, having your inventory across all your channels, have a pulse on that so that there's not, you're having sellouts or it's not a bad problem to have, but being ahead of that and being really able to forecast and plan and then react.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us really nicely into what we call kind of our 5-step framework. So this is something we've developed. As we all know, like with growth comes opportunity. Sorry, I'm like, I will talk to everyone over here now. When you have opportunity, when you have growth, that's also when chaos starts to creep in. So really making sure that you're spending the time to pay attention to the things that these people up here have said today. We've seen the same challenges that all of you have expressed. A lot of you have come up to our booth, we've talked to you, but we've seen the same challenges across thousands of sellers. And so to help that, what we've done, we've consolidated it into a 5-step framework. This is going to be available at this download, so you'll see it right on here, veeco.com/accelerate. You can download it. You can give it a read later. I won't sit up here and read it to you, I promise. I am going to summarize it a little bit, and then we'll get into kind of how it can apply as well. So for the 5 steps, and these are in no prioritization, no particular order. It's just the 5 items that we've highlighted as important. Centralize your inventory. We've already heard how that is a massive time saver, a massive keeping your sales up, your listings up, etc. Standardizing your workflows. Thank you. Not used to having a clicker in my hand.
There you go.
So
Now we're talking.
standardize your workflows. Expand on your channels, but do it strategically. Don't be all things to all people. Simplify your fulfillment with like a hybrid flexibility. And then ultimately what Casey had said, automate the repetitive, but then own the strategic. So let's talk about how these have kind of shown up in practice for you guys. So for inventory, Pat, we all know that inventory is the foundation. Without products, we have nothing to sell, right? So how did centralizing your inventory change the way that you operated?
I think it's incredibly important, especially if you're a multi-channel. Like a lot of people don't consider wholesale multi-channel, but it is. So like if you're wholesaling to people, if you're going to retail, whether you're using Amazon, Walmart, Etsy, any of these different stores, being able to do that, because we had so many problems with lags and that kind of thing, and then being out of stocks or whatever when you're in your busy season. Because as a seasonal company, in November, December, you better make sure that it's right, because if you end up refunding things because you don't have it in stock or other things, not only costs you money, it costs you customer confidence. So I think that the biggest thing for me was making sure that I knew exactly what was where. I haven't gotten as good at trying, like I've seen a lot of speeches about how you can do sort of, FBA and then do your own fulfillment through different areas of the country. I've never gotten as deep into where it is, but making sure that it was available. I just tried to avoid as many problems as I could by making sure that centralized inventory was there.
Yeah. And that actually leads us right into a great point, which is the next one, fulfillment. So fulfillment's never one size fits all. So Michael, how did you decide between when you were doing FBA to then adding other fulfillment methods, doing merchant fulfilled?
We always did do merchant fulfilled.
Okay.
And we are doing more of it now, as a matter of fact. But the wonderful thing about Veeco was that, in a sense, it didn't matter because I have visibility to all of the inventory, no matter what warehouse it's in. The fulfillment centers are there. My own warehouse is there. And so that, I know I'm like a broken record on that, but that just fixed so many things that were going wrong. And the wonderful thing is, it seems to me that since Veeco has expanded, that, is there a channel that you can't be on that Veeco can't handle? I don't know. It seems to me like they're everywhere, And so if I were to go, just beyond FBA or in Shopify, and I do have a teeny tiny presence on Walmart, and so it's there and it can handle it, and it just works. It's when we have a sellout, it's because we screwed up somewhere in data entry. It's not because Veeco messed up.
I do have an addition to that, actually.
Yeah,
it depends
please.
on your product sometimes, too, because I talked to some people about Seller Fulfilled Prime, which my product is big. It's slippers. It's looks like a box of tennis shoes. So we couldn't really do that. Right. But then we tried to reverse engineer our expensive costs of storage in Amazon. So we decided, let's invert the product. Let's seal it like you see a mattress come in a little way to be able to lower that dim. And we gained 35% in each container, which was a big cost savings.
Yeah.
It's
So I
a
think
little
there's
hard for me to do
lot
that
of
with my
things-
pottery.
I get that part. But if you have the
Vacuuming
ability,
pottery is hard.
yeah, if you have the ability to do that, there's a lot of savings in reverse engineering how your product's even presented. Because DIMS, like if you have one little spot that's bigger on one spot, it's going to screw your DIMS up and make it much more cost. Watching small things like that really matter.
And Casey, I'm going to come to you for this one because that actually leads really nicely into one thing that you had mentioned multiple times, which was standardizing your workflow. What are some examples of some standardized workflows you've seen our different seller teams do that have been successful?
Yeah, I think, I mean, automation is going to be the first one. You know, chaos comes when you're logging into just different carriers, to UPS, to FedEx. You know, so really knowing which one works best for you for your product types. That's a great example of, you know, being able to, you know, vent and simplify there. But I'd say automation. So anything you can do to remove the human intervention of things, whether that's through APIs or connecting different systems. So Vico does connect to different you know, carriers, front end, back end of things too. So if you can have everything flowing into consolidated as possible, you know, not having to log into multiple systems. And I've seen it all. I've seen inventory tracked on spreadsheets. So just being able to consolidate and automate are kind of the two biggest wins that you can have within managing business.
Yeah, we've gone from the old basket of remotes to now the basket of apps.
Good analogy.
Now, Michael, for you, in terms of automation, what was one task that you've automated that made an immediate difference for you?
Standardized, you know, the central inventory.
Centralized inventory.
But we use Vico for, you know, printing and fulfillment. We used to do all of that on Seller Central, which really worked really very well. I mean, I was very happy with that. That wasn't my first attraction to Vico, but but now, I mean, we essentially do, you know, everything on Vico, and I love, you know, the scales are hooked up so you know, you weigh the package and you don't have to manually type in any numbers. It's all you can sort. My business is such that I have a whole bunch of SKUs and a small quantity of them, so that creates a nightmare on so many levels. But you know, if there are 5 of SKU A, B, C, you know, the person packing those can sort those so that he can do all 5 of those at the same time instead of, you know, going back and forth between them. So and really you can, I mean, there's so many things that you can customize to make your workflow more efficient. Yeah. And I have yet to find something there's one thing though I keep telling them I want them to do, and I
hope someone's taking notes.
And it's I want to be able to add our shipping boxes as an inventory item so that when the person packing it is packing that order, you know, he or she selects a box, and then that's decremented from the inventory so that we have an easy way of, because right now that, you know, your box selection is outside of that process.
So you want to track your boxes as
I
well
want to track boxes
to be able
just like any other kind of inventory.
Spoiler alert, we can do that.
I know you can, and they told me they would eventually, so I'm looking forward to it.
We'll talk after the show. Pat, I want to come to you for that same question. We have a little bit of extra time. So what's a task that you've automated outside of centralized inventory for everybody?
I think one of the biggest things that Vico brought me was flexibility and fulfillment. And I'll tell you why, because my system's a little different. We do 2 batches a day or 3 batches a day in our busy season that we actually do them in batch, and then we upload them to our warehouse, our 3PL, which is in another state. But one of the challenges we had was on the weekends, if they went in for a few hours and want to pull some, because it's a really close relationship with these people. And if we weren't working on it, they really couldn't run anything because they didn't have an ability to choose what shipping method because it was my money they were spending. Right. So what Vico allowed us to do was last year say, let's just trust what's there. Go ahead and run it on its automated spot, and then we'll export it and learn what we have to learn about what mistakes were made and what we can change in the future. So what it allowed us to do was get wider in our distribution, Vico did. The second thing I think it really allowed us, I am a big fan of the profit analyzer inside Vico, because I think it shows you so much great information, and you drill down to the SKU level on advertising and everything that it provides you. Like, we get so wrapped up in digits now. So many people analyze everything. It's like, I hate that. I really hate overanalyzing numbers and hovering over them, because I think you can talk yourself into things that really aren't there. And I think what Vico did was compartmentalize the information I really needed, and the time savings that we had from a shipping standpoint was just massive for us. So I just loved how the whole system flowed and allowed us to have much more distribution time in a much more flexible way.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and can I just yell amen on that too? Because Profit Analyzer, Profit
phenomenal.
Analyzer has helped me so much because I just would get so frustrated about all the layers of, particularly when I was doing more FBA. There are so many layers of fees and the advertising fees, and Profit Analyzer has made it possible to consolidate all that data and review it and find out if you're even making money or what you need to. I mean, it's
And
just, it's
if you're a seller out there that doesn't have great P&Ls, if you're so busy and at the end of the year you do all your financials, this is a godsend to you day to day. It really is. You
what's a
should look it
P&L?
up. Exactly.
They don't have that in
I'm a
America.
piano player.
Right on cue. Right on cue.
So let's move on to expanding to channels, because we all know that that's part of why we're here. It's expansion, it's growth. So how did either of you guys, and we'll keep these a little bit brief so we can make sure we have time for questions, but when it came to expanding to other channels, how did you guys keep yourself from overextending? How did you down select? How did you determine how to start that?
I'm literally terrible to ask that because like I said before,
All right, Michael.
I went from 0 to 60. I tried everything, and some of them were great, some of them weren't. I think that with our product, we got so much brand recognition. We can pretty much go to any we want, but it's like, do you want to spend a lot of time in the integrations and things? So when I analyzed it, we went as wide as we could because we're going to be on Shark Tank. We want to be everywhere that could be. So mine was a little bit different.
Yeah.
Mine was completely the opposite of that because I didn't have the money or the brand recognition to go broad. And then I did find the other places where I've stuck my toe in the water have not really panned out that well for my product line. So Amazon and for right now, Amazon and Shopify are my two most productive channels.
Perfect. Let's hit like a lightning round. Let's get some
Uh-oh.
quick, rapid testing questions here. All right, Michael, what's one tool or integration you could not scale without?
Centralized inventory. Yeah. But runner-up would be Profit Analyzer. Though.
Profit
Yeah,
Analyzer.
yeah.
Okay, Pat, if you were going to start, which you do almost every week, a new multi-channel selling business today, what would you do differently?
Wow.
Keep in mind, lightning question.
Nothing. I believe my mistakes were what formed the good things. I would never do anything different than that. I've failed way more than I've succeeded, but I do it exactly the same way.
The Edison theory. 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Casey, for you, for everybody in the room, the number one piece of advice you'd offer the sellers that are looking to scale to other channels this year or next year since we're at the end?
Yeah, I mean, this is lightning round, but I think you both said it, and it's fail fast. So, learn from your mistakes. Everyone in this room is here because you're a successful seller and you want to be a more successful seller. That's why you come here. So learning from those around you. If you're scaling to other channels, you can start with a small subset of SKUs. And then just the socialization that you have among each other to learn from others. And then really learning each marketplace. You have these standardized processes, but each marketplace has different levers that you can pull. So really understanding what those levers are. You can copy paste Amazon's playbook, but there are certain things that you'll need to tweak. So really understanding that, and it's always those that came before you. So being able to find the people that have, are successful on eBay if that's where you want to go, or if it's Walmart or whatever it may be, can offer advice. So.
And just to add on top of that, I'd say also like knowing where your audience is. If you're doing home goods or things like that, knowing where the creative or the customization spaces are. If you were in auto parts, I mean, it's probably a little bit different.
It would be very different.